this is where we left off last class. This is bird number 10. It's called the blue jay. So here is bird number 11. Bird number 11. This is a group of birds that is very challenging to discern between all the different types. This is one of the sparrows, and we will learn a few sparrows, but sparrows are challenging. Okay, so right now, once we get through 20 or 30 birds, I think we have 2 sparrows amongst those, and you'll be able to see the difference between them. But when we go out in the field, there will be various sparrows, and we may or may not be able to identify some of them, but we'll do our best. This is the song sparrow. The song sparrow. 2 words, song and sparrow. Most of your sparrows are just smaller, kind of brownish with white birds. So you have to look kind of closely at some small markings. And this one, I think, is a pretty straightforward one. Is there a marking that stands out to you? And I know might be the first sparrow you've ever looked at and been like, oh, that's a sparrow. But is there a marking that stands out?
Just stripe on his head.
Okay, some of the stripes on the head.
Big dot on the chest.
But the big diagnostic feature is this barbecue stain on the chest right here. So this brown blotch on the chest, or breast is what we say with birds, is going to be your most useful identifier for this bird. Mr. Kinney has a way of remembering this, and it relates to a country music song that I have never heard before, but apparently there was a fairly popular country music song in the last 15 years where there was a line that said, "Barbecue stain on my white t-shirt." And I do not know where that song came from. I mean, I don't know what song that is or who sang it or anything. Maybe you can find out and we can play the song one day. But this is a barbecue stain on the white t-shirt, and that's from a song sparrow. Got it? Got it? Good. All right, so that's bird number 11, barbecue stain on a white t-shirt. Bird number 12. The prominent orange breast and belly here is going to be your best feature for identifying this bird. And the name of it is the American robin. Bird number 12, the American robin. I guess it depends on a variety of factors, but there are some years where around here we see so many of these that I'll be like, oh, look, a bird. And then everybody will be like, oh, well, robin, another one. Sometimes they're just in huge numbers. And some years we don't really see that many of them.
Is it the same thing as an oriole?
No. The oriole does have orange, but there's a lot of different markings. I wasn't trying to be too dismissive either. No. It is different from the oriole. I'm not sure if we even see orioles around here, but if we do, they're not common. Yeah, they probably see them in Baltimore.
I hope so.
All right. Next bird. This bird is bird number 13. I know I'm being a little deliberate here, but I want to make sure I don't mess up the numbering and have people learning the wrong names for the wrong birds. Bird 13, kind of a weird name here. It's the eastern towhee. 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 Eastern towhee. Anything stand out to you about the eastern towhee? What do we call this?
Rufus.
Rufus, yeah. Now, you can say brown or burnt orange or whatever you want, but a lot of times you'll hear the rufus band under the wing. And I'm going to be honest with you, you know, you might not think black or white is a really like prominent color, but when you get this contrast, especially like the kind of solid black with the rufus and then the solid white, that's pretty distinct out in nature. If we get lucky and see an eastern towhee, you're not going to confuse it with many birds. So the black, rufus, white. By the way, what do you think this towhee eats?
Nuts.
Yeah, this is probably seeds and nuts with a beak like that. I'm not certain, but that's what I would infer from that beak shape. So that's number 13, the eastern towhee. Next bird. This is bird number 14, and do you know what we call them?
Bluebird.
This is the eastern bluebird. And bluebird is actually one word. Eastern bluebird. We nearly wiped these guys out in the U.S. about 150 years ago because people would hunt them so that they could use the blue feathers in like hats and things. And it's kind of I don't know how nationwide this trend is or what their range is exactly, but it's eastern United States because we call them the eastern bluebird. But it's kind of a southern tradition that started in the early 20th century to like build bluebird houses and put them around. You might have a parent or a grandparent, if you're from this area, that has a bluebird house. And once their numbers dropped so much, this was one of the early kind of efforts to bring back a species and restore it and keep it from being endangered or extinct. So it's kind of it's a bit of a tradition to have bluebird boxes around here, provide habitat. And the eastern bluebird, you see a lot of these. Like we'll go over to the Dar farm and there's usually some bluebirds flying around over there. So we should get a chance to see them. The males are the brighter blue versus the females. And it's not just the blue, which at times of the year is a brilliant blue, but you also have this kind of orangey rufus contrast on the breast. Not solid like the robin or anything, but noticeable. So kind of the blue and orange. And, you know, at this point you might be thinking, oh, well, I might confuse that with the blue jay because they're both blue. Much smaller. The blue jays are going to be much more prominent with black markings on them. Once you take a look at both of them side by side, there's no confusing them. But the blue jay and the bluebird are really the only ones with blue, so the naming system helps there. All right, this little guy. This is bird number what? 15. And the name here, there's two parts to this name. The first is a hyphenated term, ruby crowned. Ruby crowned is the first part to this name. Ruby like the gemstone, and crowned like you put a crown on someone's head, crown. Ruby crowned, and then the second part of the name is kinglet. King, L-E-T, one word. ruby-crowned kinglet. Now, this is a bird that you've probably never seen or noticed visually, but you probably have heard it, and you've probably walked by it many times in your life if you're from this area. They're really small, and they're really shy. And it's hard to, even when you know, like, it's in that tree, it's still hard to get a good glimpse of them. Not anything really special about the markings. I mean, there are some like yellow and black and white bands and stripes on the wing that you could look at, but they usually are like hopping around and out of sight and in sight so quickly, you don't really get a chance to be like, let me look at that wing. Ah, yes, I see that pattern. They're tough. This is a tough bird to identify. The big key is the what? This little ruby crown or red mohawk. If you can see that on its head, that's going to be like your immediate, like, that's it. That's a ruby crown kinglet. But here's the problem. They don't always have this little red tuft sticking up. Sometimes it's slicked back and you really can't see it. And it's not unless they're like kind of agitated or angry that they show it. So it's not necessarily going to be something you see, but if you can see it, that's a good identifier. But they're cute. They're just these little birds, and when they get angry, they're like a little red mohawk, just like. So they're fun. There's also another kinglet that we'll look at later, but that's around here, and they're pretty cool too. But we'll talk about those later. Okay, next bird. This is going to be bird 16. And this is two-part name, red-winged, with a hyphen in between. Red-winged. What's the second part? Do you know?
Crow.
They kind of look like.
Vulture.
They don't look like a vulture. Blackbird, one word. Red-winged blackbird. So that's two words. Red-winged is one word with a hyphen in it. Second word, blackbird, but blackbird is one word. If that was confusing, I apologize. Red-winged blackbird. We have a male and female up here. Which one's the male? This one right here with the prominent red and even a little yellow band on the shoulder. The female doesn't really look like that. But I'll say this about the female. Most of the females will have a tiny red spot on the shoulder that you can see if you get a good angle and look in your binoculars and the bird is not moving too much at the moment. So it is possible to, identify the female even though it's not nearly as well marked. Sometimes in this area, times of the year, you'll just have like an enormous flock of birds that are all black and they're making a lot of ruckus, like they're chirping a lot, and then something scares them and they all fly off. And they'll like just cover a tree or just be all over someone's yard and flying together. Sometimes those flocks are actually multiple different birds, but if you ever see that, look for some red wings. Red-winged blackbird, number 16. Okay, just a couple more birds and then we'll work on some binocular stuff. This is the yellow-rumped warbler. Yellow-rumped, like rump, ed, yellow-rumped. Why do we call it yellow-rumped?
Yellow rump.
It's got a little yellow rump. Yeah.
What is it called? Yellow rump?
A yellow-rumped, and then the second part of the name is a warbler. W-A-R-B-L-E-R. Warbler. Yellow-rumped warbler. It's got yellow on the side here near the wing and on the back, so we'll probably have a chance to see a yellow-rumped warbler on campus. And it's nice when there's multiple markings on birds, because if you can't see the rear end or you can't see the side, at least there's yellow on both. And when you see that yellow spot, that's, it's a pretty distinct feature. The yellow-rumped warbler. That is bird number 17. So we're going to do 3 more birds. The next one, bird 18. Bird 18. This is the white-breasted nuthatch. Kind of an awkward, weird name. White-breasted is hyphenated. White-breasted. And then the second part of the name is one word, nuthatch. N-U-T-H-A-T-C-H. Nuthatch. White-breasted nuthatch. These are pretty common around here. And they're a pretty fun and distinct bird. You have this kind of steel gray, blue gray with the white. It's also got kind of this rufous butt. So sometimes people joke about its poopy pants. I mean, I wasn't joking, I was just telling you. I mean, I wasn't making a joke. But white-breasted, there's pretty solid, distinct white with the blue-gray contrast. But this is a weird bird in one specific way. And this is true about the other nuthatch that we will talk about, but it's going to be another day that we talk about the other nuthatch. Nuthatches, when you see them on a tree, a lot of times they walk straight up or straight down the trunk. And that's kind of what you're seeing here. Like if this is the trunk of the tree, it would be walking head and beak pointed down, and then, like in this case, it's looking back up. But a lot of times you'll just see something like kind of crawling up or down a tree, and that's kind of a nuthatch kind of behavior, which is something that could help you identify them. They also have this really long, slender beak that they use. They kind of remind me of woodpeckers a little bit. This is not a woodpecker, but they are going to be on the trunks of trees, kind of needling into the bark, trying to pick things out. But a lot of times you'll see them on like bird feeders and things as well. So they're not exclusively just eating bugs out of trees, but that's kind of what that beak is for. So that's number 18, the white-breasted nuthatch. And I don't want to spend too much time on just bird names today, so we're going to try to wrap this up pretty quickly here. This is bird number 19. One of my favorite birds that we'll find on campus. Not real common. I don't think I saw one on campus last year. I don't think any of the classes last year saw a northern flicker. This is the northern flicker, like flick with an ER. Northern flicker. There are a bunch of different characteristics that this bird has that you could use to identify it. I mean, when you see a northern flicker, which, again, you might not have ever seen one before, and they're a little bit hard to, they're not real common, but we'll hopefully see one. When you see a northern flicker, you look at it and go, that bird is really different. Because of what? Yeah, you got this black spotted breast with a black bib. What else? There's a little bit of a red marking on the back, contrasting with gray. That's weird. You don't see that in the bird world very much. Black mustache. And they're pretty big. Like, this isn't a tiny little kinglet where you're like, oh, I think I saw something. I mean, this thing is a nice sized bird that is really prominent. And the yellow tail feathers here.
Kind of Rufus, like in the eye. Orange on the eye.
Say that again.
Orange on the eye.
Yeah, I mean, you do have kind of that chestnut, brownish, kind of around the eye. But I'm going to be honest with you, if it wasn't for the fact that this thing has like 5 or 6 super weird, distinct markings that a lot of birds don't have, I mean, you're not even going to notice some of the other markings on it. And then finally, for bird 20, to wrap this up, and then we'll have the last 10 next class probably. This is what we call the chipping sparrow. Like a chipping. And then the second part of the name is, it's a sparrow. So this is another sparrow. Is there anything you can use to differentiate it from the other sparrow, the song sparrow?
Rufus head.
It does have this kind of chestnut. It's a little too brown for me to call it Rufus, but it's a unique shade of brown. So it's wearing a little hat. And what does it not have that the song sparrow does?
Barbecue.
Yeah, there's no barbecue stain. This is a really clean shirt it's wearing right here. Nice, clean, white t-shirt. White t-shirt. Now, we will see sparrows from time to time when we go out, and they may not be the song or the chipping sparrow. There are many other ones, but hopefully we can make a determination. So we're going to stop the video there.